Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Bermane Stiverne is gassing himself up something chronic right now, letting everyone know he will inflict pain on Deontay Wilder in their November 4th rematch. So Wilder-Stiverne 2, the remix. It's happening after the WBC withdrew its sanctioning of the scheduled Wilder vs Luis Ortiz fight after the Cuban failed a drug test. So a lot going on in that situation. So all I'll say on that front in this video is it was a disappointing situation for fans and we haven't got the fight that we wanted. So the WBC has now ordered Wilder, its heavyweight champion, to face Stiverne, who he beat handily to win the title almost 3 years ago. So let's see what Stiverne is saying and dig into his record to see what we can expect. So go for it, gantsports.com, see the link in the description, is reporting Stiverne as saying, "I am ready, willing and able to seize back my title from Wilder. We all know that Wilder dodged a bullet in that first fight, but not this time. It was my fault, but I learned from my mistakes. On November 4, Wilder will feel my pain." This is the sort of thing that you would expect Stiverne to say. There's no point in showing up otherwise. If you recall, Stiverne claimed after the first fight that he wasn't at his best because he was severely dehydrated. He was even treated for that in hospital afterwards. In terms of that, I've never really given that reason from Stiverne much credence, as there was no reason he should have headed into that fight dehydrated, and I doubt he did. Did he get dehydrated in the fight? That's pretty hard to dispute given his treatment for dehydration afterwards. But surely Stiverne in his corner could have been making sure during the fight that he wasn't getting dehydrated. But even then, it's a highly demanding combat sport. There's always going to be some pressure on the body, and dehydration to some degree shouldn't come as any great surprise. I mean, you see it in other sports. Say, for example, American football and Australian rules, Aussie rules in recent years, where we've seen players taking in fluids via IV at half-time on the sidelines. That's kind of been ruled out because it was grossing some people out, but that's the sort of thing that happens in professional sports. It is demanding and tiring. So for me, it always felt like Stiverne, well, he has lent too much on that dehydration excuse. Because when you go back and watch the fight, he was basically outclassed from the get-go. Sure, it probably wasn't his best performance, but it always kind of did seem that, he put too much weight on that dehydration excuse. And that's what I do consider it to be, an excuse. So with all that context in mind, I'm not sure Wilder really dodged a bullet. He was just too good for Stiverne. Could Stiverne have done better? Sure. But it's always easy to look in the rear view and say whatever you want after the fight. The fact is, he lost. So in terms of will Deontay Wilder feel Bermane Stiverne's pain on November 4th? Well, it's a good question. I mean, I guess it kind of depends on what version of Bermane Stiverne turns up. We kind of have no clue where this guy is actually at because he's only had one fight in almost 3 years since the defeat to Wilder. Who knows where he is actually at? And that fight was against journeyman Derek Rossi. And Stiverne came off the canvas to get a win in that fight. And there's a number of people who say he was pretty lucky to get that win. And just running a couple of clips here in the background of Stiverne in training from the past couple of weeks. For me, the question of how good Bermane Stiverne is definitely an open question. He was very lucky, incredibly lucky, I would say actually, that the WBC made him the mandatory challenger earlier this year, based on almost no fights. I guess he can really thank his promoter Don King for that. That was good promoting by Don King, actually securing that spot. So what do we know about Stiverne? Well, originally from Haiti, he's based in the US now. He's 39 years old. He's been a pro for 12 years. He has a record of 25 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. His most high-profile fight is against Deontay Wilder, and we know he lost that one, so that's one of the losses. And his best win is against Chris Arreola. He actually has a pair of wins against Arreola. And he won the vacant WBC belt in their second meeting. Derek Rossi and Ray Austin, they would be, and I've got the record up here on screen, they would be the next best wins on his record. But when you take a good look at the list of names there's not a lot there. The other loss and a draw, they came earlier in Stiverne's career, and they were against journeyman opposition. So the burning question we've been leading up to in this video, can Bermane Stiverne beat Deontay Wilder the second time around? Unlikely. If anything, Wilder has improved since that first clash, and he now has a vicious left hook he's been perfecting to take the pressure off his right hand. It's that right hand that keeps getting injured, and he could only work on his left hand after the right was injured in his fight with Chris Arreola last year. Arreola seems to have had a few title shots, not really sure he's actually deserved them, but it's by the by. So Stiverne, for me, bit of a plotter in the ring, and there's not really one thing about his game that stands out besides his punching power. He's a bit like Lucas Brown in some respects. You know, Stiverne can really punch, and his 75% KO ratio, that would tend to back that up. So he does have a puncher's chance. You can't take that away. And I think we saw in that first fight that Wilder respected his power enough to not be too reckless. But that ultimately resulted in a dominant boxing performance, Wilder using the jab and other things that, we hadn't really seen as much of in previous fights. So I guess, Wilder putting on a clinic there, that kind of shows, given most people say that technically Deontay Wilder isn't great, that win kind of shows actually how poorly Stiverne fought on the night. And we know Wilder can be hurt when hit with the right punch. So yes, Stiverne has an outside shot, but for me, I'm picking Wilder. I think he'll probably win in devastating fashion. What do you think? What do you make of it? What do you think about what Bermane Stiverne is actually saying here? Does he have a chance? Is Wilder going to leave an opening for Stiverne to actually knock him out? I wouldn't have thought so, but like to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment, hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.